Identifying the best authorities on the web. We've talked about this to some extent in other slides. Official versus unofficial, the source and reputation of the unofficial sources, if any. The citation of a document. There are no standard citation standards for online documents necessarily outside of the URL. URL and site to print counterparts. This is, my point here really is that this is all kind of inconsistent. In other words, if you were researching for a document that has to be presented in a formal situation, the URL is one thing, but if you can better the citation to a permanent record kind of thing, like a citation to a court report, a court reporter, or a statutory compilation, it gets inconsistent. The Blue Book accounts for it by saying things like, this material at URL, paren, last visited, date, close paren. And that recognizes the fact that you verified its existence as of that date, but that doesn't mean it's going to be there necessarily. The best practice if you're going to do that is to save the document or page in a PDF format that accounts for the URL and the date. Internet search techniques. I think we've talked about this already. Filters with date, filters by type and format, filters by language. I've mentioned this earlier with the file type stuff, and again I emphasize Google search operators. That's your search that will get you all of the things that you can do in the search box in Google that will filter or limit what you're looking for to file type, format, and other kinds of set of circumstances. Local search at specific sites. Sometimes search is difficult at various sites. Like I said, the FCC site was impossible, so I had to use Google search to find the document because they can sometimes search within the contents of an agency's public documents unless they're in a database. Sometimes I had to go back and forth in that example that I was mentioning. So basically, sometimes don't assume that if it's not in Google, it doesn't exist. Archival documents, for example, could be searched at local search within the agency because they can account for it, whereas Google may not. Searching individual topics, gathering information. When you're aware of the details of a topic, it helps a lot. When you're unaware of the details, you may have to understand how the law is structured in that area. That's where you might want to go through places like SSRN to gather information about specific topics of law and their details with citations. Wikis and legal sites, again, that's kind of weak, but it is an option. And class outlines might help you understand the law quickly. In other words, students in law school prepare outlines on a particular class or topic. I'm not saying this is a primary search or a primary source you should look at, but sometimes students present outlines or as a survey on particular topics of law that they're studying and share them with other students and put them up online. LibGuides, I think, would be the best version of this outside of going to a library and picking up a horn book or picking up a nutshell. I think I've given examples on this before. If not, feel free to email me. Combining internet search with print materials. The West key number system comes naturally to this, if that's the case. Basically, what you might be able to do is go to a digest contained in a law library on a particular jurisdiction that is of use to you, and do your source research there, get the citations, go online, get the cases from a free legal research source like Google Scholar or Legal, which is mentioned in the database, or mentioned in the handout. Finding printed citable versions of online documents. Google Scholar, for example, gives you the citations, gives you star paging. That's convenience. But if you actually need the printed document as it exists, then you would have the citation. You can go directly to the law library and get copies of them as necessary. All right, technical issues. Standard file formats and readers. PDF is desirable because it implies this is how the printed version looks. You'll find things in text HTML word processing formats. Again, I've given you a methodology of how to find those things, but don't assume that everything is in a similar format or the desired format in terms of the way that you find it. More importantly, don't assume that multiple sites that have access to these same documents through search will give you that document in the same format. That is not the case. You will find that multimedia exists on the web at this point. PowerPoint is actually considered multimedia to some extent. Podcasts and video presentations. Law school lectures are available through iTunes. For some example, I believe they had iTunes University, but I believe that's been added into iTunes video presentations directly. Those are usually without fee. YouTube has its own YouTube University as well, and will give you academic lectures that you can search for. So don't assume that tutorials or other stuff or classes aren't available to you. Typically they are. So this is another place where you can find information about how a topic is arranged legally and how it's not so much researched legally, but the more you know about it. In other words, you can get a lecture on a particular legal topic through iTunes or through YouTube. It is a source you can use. Let me make sure I'm okay. Legal apps. This is new to this presentation because I never accounted for them before. There are legal apps out there. You can search the App Store, the iTunes Store, or you can search the Google App Store for them. My impression is that they are fairly terrible, but they're getting better. For example, the Westlaw app has not been updated in several years, and people have criticized it for its lack of functionality, but it exists out there. I'm not suggesting that you want to download it on your tablet or your phone, but what I'm saying is that it would be a nice thing for you to see what's out there. And while I didn't list them here, there are things like extensions. I believe Lexis has one called Best View that allows you to, if you have access to Lexis, that is, which will look at what you're searching on a legal topic. So if you search a topic and you're looking in Wikipedia, Best View will start up and tell you what's available in Lexis on that very same topic. There's a lot of stuff out there, so look through the legal apps on through the stores and do a search for extensions, browser extensions on for particular legal services.